Hi guys, I'm Mrs. Morrison. I'm one of the 4 counselors in the AHS guidance office, and today we're going to talk about our pass-fail policy as well as maximizing your GPA. Before I get started with that, I just kind of want to talk to you guys about why this is important information. Obviously, we want you to maximize your GPA to the fullest ability. I think that goes without being said. But also, we recognize that when you are trying to reach your goals, such as the Mount Scholarship at the end of your junior year, or top 10%, or maybe even valedictorian, there's a lot that comes into play with that, and so we want to take just some time today to go over what it looks like to maximize that GPA. Okay, so first, I think you have to understand that we have weighted classes and we have non-weighted classes. An example of a non-weighted class would be on a 4.0 scale, and that would be something such as Foundations of Art. You know, it is an elective class or could be used for a graduation requirement, and it is a 4.0 class, meaning if you get an A, you would get, 4 quality points for that. On the flip end of that, we have classes such as Anatomy and Physiology dual credit through Mount Union, and that's gonna be a weighted class. We have AP Psychology, that's gonna be another weighted class. So if you're ever thinking, how do I know what class is weighted and what class is not? A good rule of thumb is to remember that if there is an AP class, it's always weighted. And if there is a dual credit class or class you get for college credit, if there's an AP equivalent, then it is also weighted. Also, if you're just wondering and you're like, I'm not really sure, you can always ask your counselor to see what classes are weighted and what classes are not. Again, unweighted classes or non-weighted classes, that's gonna be on a 4.0 scale, and weighted classes are going to be on a 5.0 scale. And that does look different. You can take a combination of both weighted and non-weighted, and as you'll see in the slide here, you're gonna see that different letters, A, B, C, those have different weights associated when we're looking on a 4.0 scale and a 5.0 scale. Okay, so this gets a little, I don't wanna say confusing, but it can. It gets a little tricky when we're talking about maximizing your GPA and your class rank. I think a lot of times people think the highest GPA is going to be the highest class rank, and that is not true, because we have a formula that we would like to maximize your GPA with taking an appropriate amount of classes. We would never want to get in a situation where a student just takes the bare minimum weighted classes and they don't take other fun electives that really get you to come to school. We're talking band or strength and conditioning or your foreign languages, your music classes. We recognize some of those are not weighted, but we don't want you to not take those classes. So what we have is a formula that maximizes the amount of credits you're earning and the GPA associated with those classes that are non-weighted and weighted. So at the end of your freshman year, we are looking for you to have earned 7 credits. If you earn at least 7 credits, then you're maximizing the GPA and your ranking. And so some students will say, what if I go over that? And then we'll talk about pass-failing those classes. And some students will say, what if I'm under? 7 at the end of your freshman year is kind of the sweet spot. That's where we wanna stay. Your 10th grade year, it's gonna be 14 credits. Your 11th grade year is gonna be 21, and at the end of your senior year, we're looking for 28 to maximize the highest possible GPA. Your GPA for class rank, again, is based on a max number of credits each year, and taking a non-weighted class, 4.0, beyond this limit could lower your GPA, and that's what we talk about when we talk about pass-failing, which is what we're gonna talk about next.
Hi, I'm Mrs. McDermott, and I just want to break down a few examples. Examples I think make this a little easier to comprehend. I'm going to show you 3 different students and how those 4-point versus 5-point quality points can come into play and why pass-fail can be super important when trying to maximize your GPA. So if we're looking at student number 1, we're going to calculate their GPA. So if you look here, this student has 5 classes, but all of their classes are weighted on a 4-point scale. So they're unweighted. You'll notice they're a straight A student. So they got an A in all of their classes. And then when you calculate this GPA at the bottom, you'll see we took 5 classes times those 4 quality points, and we got 20. So to average that out, that student has a 4.0 GPA. So this student, student number 2, you'll notice that they are also a straight A student. They're also taking 5 classes, But you'll notice the difference here is this student, their classes are weighted on a 5-point scale. You can see where it says worth 5 points for all of their classes. And you can see when we calculate their GPA, they are receiving a 5.0 GPA. So you can see how that 4-point versus 5-point can make a really big difference when calculating their GPA. We have one more student, and this is a really great example because it shows you this student, they have 5 classes that are weighted on a 5-point scale, and then they also are taking jet setters. So they're taking one of those classes they really enjoy that's an elective class, but you'll notice that jet setters class is weighted on a 4-point scale. So when we calculate out this student's GPA, we took 29 divided by 6, and they actually have a 4.8. So even though they got A's in all of those classes, because that jet setters class is worth 4 points instead of 5, they are actually getting a lower GPA than the previous student. So this is very important to consider, and this is when, if you're the type of student you're taking those 5-point classes, but you also are taking a class that is not weighted, so jet setters, for example, like that last student, you'll want to talk to your counselor and see how pass-fail comes into play for you. So for that student, that last student there that was taking jet setters, you'll see that they could have achieved a higher GPA by using the pass-fail option for their jet setters class. So if they were to change jet setters to pass-fail on their schedule, the class would be removed from the GPA calculation, and that would allow the student's GPA to remain at a 5.0 instead of dropping to a 4.8. So it's highly recommended, like I said, that students meet with their counselor to talk about how this pass-fail policy applies to them specifically, because it can be different for every student. And like Mrs. Morrison said, we want you to get in classes that you really want to enjoy, but we also don't want them to drag down your GPA. So talk to your counselor for sure.
Hi guys, I'm Mrs. Patty, and I'm also one of the counselors in the guidance office. So I'm going to talk to you about why a student might want to pass-fail a class. So Mrs. McDermott just showed you some examples of schedules with a mix of weighted classes versus unweighted classes. So that first reason would be to maintain or improve a class rank by managing your GPA. So for those students who are taking a mix of classes, we're going to want to look and see if we have the option to pass-fail those unweighted classes so that we can maximize a GPA. Another reason to pass-fail a class would be to stay under the state's limit for credit hours every year. So the state of Ohio has a limit of 30 credit hours per year. That includes both CCP or College Credit Plus credits combined with high school credits. So there's a calculation that comes into play. The guidance office has already reviewed student schedules to determine which students are close to or over that limit, and so we'll reach out to you if we need to take a look at that and consider pass-failing a class to stay under that limit. So here are some key pass-fail policy points. So if you opt to pass-fail a class, in order to earn a P or pass the class, you've got to earn a 70% or higher for the semester. A P does not count towards your GPA. If you earn below a 70%, you receive an F for the course, and that F does go on your transcript, and it does negatively affect your GPA. So even though you're pass-failing a class, it doesn't mean that you can just stop taking it seriously. We still want you to give it your best effort. The pass-fail option is not reversible once you complete the required form and turn it into the guidance office. And our deadlines are strict. We ask that all pass-fail forms are signed by student, parent, teacher, and returned to the guidance office before the end of the semester in which you're taking that course. You can consult the decisions book to determine and to see if a course is weighted or unweighted. Which courses cannot be taken for pass-fail? There are a few that are not an option for pass-failing. So the first is any course that is a required class for graduation. So if the state of Ohio requires it, if Alliance High School requires it, you cannot pass-fail that course. You also cannot pass-fail an AP course or a College Credit Plus course. In addition, you cannot pass-fail any course for which you need the credit. And finally, courses that are required to meet NCAA clearinghouse requirements for Division I and Division II athletic scholarships, those courses are not eligible for pass-fail. So we just threw a lot of information at you, but we're really hopeful that with this video and with the slideshow at your fingertips that you'll be able to consult this anytime you have questions or are confused. And as always, if you need help with anything or you want to sit down and go over this on an individual basis, please contact your counselor, and we are more than happy to do that for you and with you. Thanks a lot.